bands up in hand and made like 5 bands a day. I was broke, came up with a plan, now I'm the man, it ain't no stopping me. I ran up all these bands up in hand and made like 5 bands a day. I was broke, came up with a plan, now I'm the man, it ain't no stopping me. It ain't no stopping me. Got bands, I'ma run it up. It ain't no stopping me. I was broke, came up with a plan, now I'm the man, it ain't no stopping me. Got bands, I'ma run it up. It ain't no
Boom! We're here. We're here. What's going on, folks? What's going on, folks? Let's jump right into it. You know, when I was a kid, long time ago, when I was a kid, my mom, whenever I had a question, I'd ask my mom, "Hey mom, what does this word mean?" Or "Hey mom, why is the sky blue?" Or "Hey mom, how far is America from Russia?" Whenever some question popped into my head as a kid, my mom would always, instead of giving me the answer to my question, she would always say, "Go look it up." Even if she knew the answer. "Hey mom, what's 2 plus 2? Go look it up." "Hey mom, what does yellow mean? Go look it up." She would never answer my question. My mom would never answer my question. She would always tell me to go look it up. And as a kid, I never understood why she was doing that. You know, as a kid, I would be like, she just doesn't want to answer my question, or maybe she doesn't know herself. But in hindsight being 2020, what my mom was trying to do, she was trying to teach me how to find answers. She was trying to teach me how to not rely on someone giving me an answer, but how to go search and look for answers myself. And I really appreciate, shout out to my mom, one time for my mom. Salute my mom, yo. My mom did me a great service by not telling me the answers, but instead making me go search for answers. Because she trained me to do that, and that's followed me my whole life. The reason I'm bringing up that story is because today I had some random question pop into my head concerning DC politics, and it started putting me on I had to go down one of those rabbit holes, right? So I'm looking into the ANC, the neighborhood commissions. I'm looking into the DC council, what their term limits are, what their responsibilities are, what the requirements for running are. Not that I'm even looking or interested in running in DC politics, but just like I say, when a question comes into my head because of my training, because of my mom, shout out, salute to my mom, I go down these rabbit holes. I always go down these rabbit holes. And as I was going down this rabbit hole, it made me think, you know, I need to go ahead and do a video, because I'm here in DC. Y'all know I'm a DC local. I'm interested in DC politics and whatnot. And by the way, I got a nice little smoothie for myself tonight. So if y'all see me taking a sip of my smoothie, don't mind me. But I was like, you know, I haven't, as a DC local, interested in talking on DC politics, I don't think I have any videos actually breaking down the legacy of Muriel Bowser. In full disclosure, I'm not a real big Muriel Bowser fan, to be honest with you. I mean, I like having a black female mayor, that part's cool. And I like DC as a city. But a lot of Muriel Bowser's policies, I'm kind of like, okay, all right. So I'm going down this rabbit hole, and I'm like, well, I'm doing this on my own time. Matter of fact, I was supposed to be at work at the time, but you know, I work. That's a whole nother story. What? That's a whole nother story in and of itself. I'm supposed to be at work, but instead of working, I'm going down this rabbit hole on DC politics. So I'm like, okay, you know what? Let me get back to work. Let me focus on what I'm getting paid to do. So I had to stop digging down the rabbit hole. I had to focus on my work. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to save it for my live tonight. All right. I'm doing a whole bunch of research just for my own edification, just for my own personal interest. And I'm like, let me go ahead. I'll save that for tonight. And tonight, what I want to do is I want to break down Muriel Bowser, her legacy. We're going to be reading from her Wikipedia page. And I know I generally don't rely on Wikipedia because it's not a reliable source. Like anyone who goes to any higher education, they'll tell you, not to rely on Wikipedia. But even if you go to her, just looking for some background information, a high level, this is not reliable source, but it does give you some context, right? Some broad. So take this with a grain of salt. All right, we're going to take this with a grain of salt, but we're just going to see what the publicly disclosed narrative about Muriel Bowser is. All right, that's what I think Wikipedia is good for. It's not good for relying on as taking. It's not good to take it for 100% fact, but it is good to give you some high level contextual information. So I want to go into Muriel Bowser, Mayor Muriel Bowser's Wikipedia page, and notice at the top of her Wikipedia page is this very interesting disclosure. So the disclosure at the top of Mayor Bowser's Wikipedia page says, this article may contain an excessive amount of intricate detail that may interest only a particular audience. Hey, that's me. Right? So when I started reading this, I was like, well, this is actually it's kind of interesting here because I'm that particular audience, just some weird guy who's up at 10 o'clock at night, interested in DC politics. But this actually contains a lot of intricate information. It's a very detailed Wikipedia page. Some Wikipedia pages are better than others. Mario Bowser or Mayor Bowser's Wikipedia page is actually very detailed, and they even have a disclaimer at the top of her page telling you that, hey, there's a lot of information here, a lot of detail. So be prepared for that. As always, I've got some clips that I want to that I'm also going to be playing as we go through this. I have some clips, some video footage that I'm going to be sharing with you guys as we go through this clip. So let's just get into the article. Let's get into the reading first, and we'll pause as necessary. Y'all know how it goes. And be sure as you're coming into the room to hit the thumbs up button. I appreciate y'all rocking with me. I really do. Salute to everyone joining me tonight. All right, so let's get into this article. Muriel Bowser, born August 2nd, 1972. 1972, let's do some quick math. We're in 2025 now. What is that, 53? Is that 53 years old? Quick math? I don't know. I'm not a math surgeon. I'm thinking 53, 52, I don't know. She's an American politician who has served as the current mayor of the District of Columbia since 2015, which means she has been the mayor of DC for 10 years now. All right? That's kind of interesting in and of itself. She's been the mayor since 2015. She's been mayor for a decade. She was president, she'd be 2 years over her term limit. But because she's mayor, she can be mayor forever, right? Interesting. A member of the Democratic Party, she previously represented the 4th Ward as a member of the City Council or the Council of DC, City Council, from 2007 to 2015. She is the second female mayor of the District of Columbia after Sharon Pratt, and the first woman to be reelected to that position. Elected as the Advisory Neighborhood Commission in 2004, this is the ANC Commission. She was originally an ANC member in 2004. All right. Now, Bowser was elected to the council in a special election in 2007, meaning she went from an ANC, just a neighborhood commissioner, to a city council member in 2007. She was succeeding Adrian Fenty, who had been elected mayor. And she was reelected in 2008 and 2012 and ran for mayor in the 2014 election. She defeated the incumbent mayor, Vincent Gray, in the Democratic primary and won the general election against 3 independent and 2 minor party candidates with 55% of the vote. In 2018, Bowser won a second term with 76.4% of the vote, then a third term in 22 with 74% of the vote. So, 2022 was the most recent election. She got 74% of the vote. So it seems as if she's fairly popular in DC. All right. Like I said, me personally, I might consider myself part of the 25%. Me personally, but she's better than nothing, I guess. The problem is she hasn't really faced any significant challengers. She hasn't really faced any significant challengers. We'll get into more information there as far as her challengers and what her actual policies are. We're going to get into all of those good things. So I appreciate y'all rocking with me. Let's get into it. Early life and education. She's the youngest of 6 children to Joe and Joanne Bowser. Her father was a DC-based public advocate who worked as a public servant and employee in DC area schools. Shout out to brother Joe Bowser, working as a public servant and employee in DC, working with the schools. That's what's up. He's a public advocate. That's what's up. Social worker. That's what's up. Bowser was born in DC and grew up in North Michigan Park in Northeast DC. In 1990, she graduated from Elizabeth Seton High School. Wow. A private all-girls Catholic high school located in Bladensburg, Maryland. Now, anyone who's watching this live, you might not be from the DMV area. The DMV is DC, Maryland, Virginia. Maryland is right outside of DC. Bladensburg might be a 30-minute, 45-minute drive from DC to Bladensburg, Maryland. All right? So it's not very far. She received a college scholarship because of her above-average grades. Bowser graduated from Chapman College in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania with a bachelor's in history, and then she graduated from AU, American University of Public Affairs, with a master's in public policy. According to Bowser, she never envisioned herself as an elected politician, but possibly an appointed agency administrator. All right. Let's get into her political career. This is where it starts to affect the people. This is where it starts to affect the people. The Advisory Neighborhood Commission. Now, this also is a learning lesson for any of the youth that might be watching this video. Maybe you're curious about how you can get involved in DC politics. If you're watching this and you're in the DC area, you might be a young DC man, hey, I don't know, high school, college, maybe even in your 20s or 30s, might be my age, right? Interested in getting into politics. This is pretty much a roadmap. Listen up, because I'm about to give you the roadmap of how you can work your way up the DC politics. The first level would be the Advisory Neighborhood Commission. Bowser began her political career in 2004, running unopposed for the Advisory Neighborhood Commission, the ANC. She represented District 4B09, which includes the neighborhoods of Riggs Park. She was unopposed again in 2006 when she ran for re-election. I want to pause it there for a second. Just so I can give you guys a quick breakdown. I want to show you a map of DC divided by ANC districts. All right, I want to show you guys a map to give you a better understanding. Give you a better understanding of the way this thing is broken up. All right, hold on, bear with me. I'm even going to show you guys where I am. I'm in AO4, I believe I'm in AO4. Just trying to get this map to work. Hold on. Hold up. Wait a minute. All right, here we go. Maybe you guys can see this. Let me see if I can share this with you guys. Can you see this? All right. This is DC. This is a map of DC. If you guys can see this, I'm gonna try to zoom in a little bit, let y'all see that. That's us, isn't it? All right, let's go over here. Uh-oh. Sorry about that. Hold on. Yep, I can see 16th Street. Yep. Rock Creek Park. Yep. So this is me. I'm over here in this tip, AO4. See, this is Rock Creek Park. This is 16th Street going all the way up and down. I'm North DC. All right. For anyone who's interested, I'm doxing myself a little bit on this one. Yeah, that's the DC map right there. All right, we're gonna get back into the article. I wanted to show you guys where 4B, where Muriel Bowser first started. In order to run, the reason I'm pointing this out is because in order to run for ANC, you have to live in that area. All right, so if I was running for ANC, I would be running in 4A, A04, I believe. She was in 4B09, right? So just wanted to point that out. But she ran unopposed. Now this is a good way for the youth. If you're looking to get into DC politics, you want to get your foot in the door. ANC, what they're responsible for doing is they are a reflection of their neighborhood. So they can, let's say there's a proposal to do some construction on the roads in your area, or there's some construction of a new business coming into the area, a new liquor store or something in your area. So let's say there's a noise complaint there, and there's a party that's going on every week, a club that's making too much noise. It would be your responsibility as the ANC Advisory Neighborhood Commission to make sure that in your area the construction is approved or is beneficial to your area, things of that nature. So you are basically a spokesperson for the people in your area. It's not a paid position, all right? That's important to point out. It's not a paid position. Recently, I've been trying to go to a lot of different ANC meetings. They usually have them online, like via Zoom. And whoever is running, or whoever is currently in office as I forget the lady's name, but the person who is my ANC advisor, I'm not very pleased with her. All right, let me just say that. Her election is coming up next year, and I'm actually thinking about running against her. Truth be told, it's not a paid position, but I'm actually thinking about running against her because I've tried to attend a few of these meetings via Zoom at this point, and every time I go on Zoom, the lady is late. She won't even show up. A lot of times they'll post that they're going to have the meeting. They don't even have the meeting. It's been pretty ridiculous. I'm not satisfied, but I digress. But hey, all right. Calling all ANCs, be on the lookout. All right, let's move on. Council, let's move on. Going on with the article. Give some more information. We're getting back to Muriel Bowser. It's about Muriel Bowser tonight. Council of District of Columbia. So in 2007, Adrian Fenty, the member of this council of the DC representing Ward 4, ran for mayor of the District of Columbia. Bowser was his campaign coordinator for Ward 4. When Fenty was elected mayor in 2006, a special election was called to fill his council seat. Bowser, among many others, announced her candidacy. She ended up winning. Long story short. But this is important because this is the first time her integrity gets called into place. While an ANC commissioner, Bowser, I want to make sure you guys can see this because this is kind of important. This is the first time her integrity gets questioned. While an ANC commissioner, Bowser had voted in favor of a zoning variance for a condo apartment development to be built by a developer who had contributed several $100s to her campaign, which some critics derided as a conflict of interest. One thing about DC, if you ask anyone about what they know about the DC mayor, there's a big cloud hanging over her head because a lot of people think that she's been bought and paid for. She's been compromised by a lot of the construction corporations, the construction companies. That's why you always see these folks getting these contracts here in DC for never-ending work that never gets accomplished. A lot of people think that she's been corrupted by a lot of these construction companies. But I digress. Let's continue reading. Bowser maintained that she had supported the development project before running for council. Robert Mason, a longtime community leader and husband of World 4 Democrat President Deborah Royster, said he has no complaints about Bowser's leadership and hasn't heard any people say she's professional and hasn't heard any. People say she's professional, easy to work with, everything you want in a council member, he said. And she has not always agreed with us on all the issues. All right. All right. Bowser won the special election with 40% of the vote. So she ended up winning 40%. All right. In 2008, the election in 2008, Bowser announced her re-election campaign to the council. 3 individuals ran against her in the Democratic Party, namely Baruti Akil Jahi. Say that 3 times fast. Baruti Akil Jahi. Say that 3 times fast. Former president of the Shepherd Park Citizens Association, Malik Mendenhall Johnson, then serving as ANC of 4B04, and Paul E. Montague, who had been advisory ANC commissioner of 4B07 before being recalled in 2004. Notice the people who are running against Mayor Bowser for DC City Council, what were the majority of them? There's 3 of them here, 2 of which were then ANC. They started off running as ANC, advisory neighborhood commissioners. So again, to the youth, if you're interested in getting involved in DC politics, it looks like the roadmap to doing so, you should start off with running for ANC. It's not a paid position, but it looks like it's less competition because it's not a paid position. There's less competition. You can get your foot in the door. You can start networking and getting a feel and an understanding of the political landscape. So if you're interested, hey, maybe consider running for ANC. No candidate names were on the ballot for the Republican or the DC State Green primaries. So again, even running for city council, the majority of them started off as ANC, advisory neighborhood commissioners, and then they're running for city council. And because DC is such a Democratic stronghold, the Republican Party and the statehood Green Party, they're pretty much non-existent. So once you get past the Democratic primaries, you're a sure in. All right. The problem is there's not a lot of primarying. There's not a lot of strong competition within the Democratic Party. But that we'll get into. That's a video for another day. The Washington Post editorial department endorsed Bowser's candidacy. The Gertrude Stein Democratic Club also voted to endorse Bowser's re-election. Bowser won the Democratic Party primary election, receiving 75% of the votes. Jahi received 19%, Montague received 3%, and Mendenhall Johnson received 2%. With no one else appearing on the subsequent general elections ballot, Bowser won the general election with 97% of the vote. Once you get past the primaries, there's no one else to vote for. You got 97% of the vote. Right. Interesting. In 2011, Bowser was appointed to the Washington Metropolitan Area Transportation Authority Board of Governors, a position she held until 2015. Bowser ran for re-election in 2012. Bowser said she would not turn down donations. Here's another thing, again with her integrity being questioned here. Bowser ran for re-election in 2012. This is for city council, mind you. Bowser said she would not turn down donations from corporations. Candidate Max Stolnick criticized Bowser for receiving campaign contributions from developers, corporate bundlers, and lobbyists, saying that Bowser would do favors for the interests of these corporate donors. And boy, did he call it. Bowser said she was not in favor of banning the corporations from making political donations altogether, saying that doing so would make it more difficult to track where campaign donations come from. Yeah, imagine that as an excuse. Yeah, we shouldn't stop taking donations from corporations, not because they can influence our elections and they're buying influence, so once we get elected, we have to owe them favors. No, we should keep taking their money, because if we don't take the corporation's money, we won't be able to track where the money's coming from. Does that pass the smell test? You tell me. Does that pass the smell test? I'm not buying it. She also said that corporations are banned from donating to federal elections, but that corporations still find ways to give to campaigns. So basically, she's saying, yeah, they're banned from giving federal donations, and they still find a way to give money. So we shouldn't ban it on local elections because they're still going to find a way to give money. That's her logic. That's her logic. Okay. All right. All right. Cool. 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 So Bowser's candidacy was endorsed by the editorial boards of the Washington Post and the Washington City paper. Bowser won the Democratic primary with 66% of the vote to Renee L. Bowser, no relation, 13%, Max Skolnick's 9%, Baruti Jahi 5%, Judy Jones 3%, Calvin Gurley 2%. Unopposed in the general election, she won again with 97% of the vote. Hmm. Hmm. On March 23rd, 2013, Bowser announced that she would run for mayor of the District of Columbia in the 2014 election. Her campaign chair was former council member William Lightfoot. I wonder if William Lightfoot is related to the Chicago mayor, Lori Lightfoot. I wonder if they have any relation. Bowser emphasized that she can connect with a longtime residents concerned about the rapid changes occurring in the district while celebrating the changes that had occurred. Bowser disdained business as usual and corruption in the district government. I don't believe that because she seems pretty corrupt herself. She favored free metro fares for students. I do support her policies concerning metro. She's been doing some good things with metro. She's making a lot of the metro buses in DC run 24 hours. That's very helpful. So I do like what she's doing with the DC metro. She was against increasing the minimum wage only for employees at large retailers. So that's one of those things where the grassroots is pushing for a minimum wage increase. They try to be reasonable, so they say, okay, we don't want to make a minimum wage increase for everyone because that will put a lot of small stores, mom and pop shops out of business. So hey, let's just have an increase of minimum wage for the large retailers like Target, Walmart. Let's have Giant, Safeway. Let's have TJ Maxx, Ross. Let's have minimum wage increases for the large retailers. And she's like, well, no, we can't only sing out the large retailers, so we shouldn't have a minimum increase for anybody. Like, one of those bait and switches. I hate when people use arguments like that. Like, oh well, it's not a perfect plan, so let's not do anything. Let's not make any change at all. So she says, oh, we don't want to just increase minimum wage for the large retailers, so we're not going to have any increase of minimum wage. Okay. Bowser was criticized for being too inexperienced for the position, with too few legislative accomplishments while on the city council, and for having a platform that was short on details. She limited the number of debates, of course, as all Democrats tend to do. She limited the number of debates by only agreeing to participate after the field of candidates had been set, which postponed the first debate until August. Bowser was endorsed by Emily's List and the editorial board of the Washington Post. She won the Democratic mayoral primary election with 43% of the vote. To raise funds for her campaign, she accepted contributions. Here's again with her integrity, corruption. She raised funds for her campaign. She accepted contributions in excess of legal limits, for which she was fined after winning the election. All right, so she's taking illegal campaign contributions. Basically, not basically, she was fined for it. So that's what happened. She committed illegal campaign finance laws. She took money in excess of the legal limits. She got fined for it. In the general election, Bowser was on the ballot with independents David Catania, Nestor, how do you say this name? Joachim, and Carol Schwartz of the DC statehood Green Faith Dane, and Libertarian Bruce Majors. No Republicans filed. The DC is a Democratic stronghold. No Republicans are even trying. Bowser won the election with 80% of the votes to Catania's 35% and Schwartz 7%, and took office on January 2nd, 2015. If I was to ever run for DC office, I would run as a Republican just because no one ever does it. Just because no one ever does it. No Republican even filed to run against Mayor Bowser. No Republicans even filed. She ran unopposed as city council. She ran unopposed after getting past in the general election. In the general election, she ran unopposed by the Republican Party. Any strong Republican in DC? DC looks like, and the reason I'm reading this it starts off by giving us her history, and then before we get into what she's actually done as mayor. So I like having the history of how she got here. I think that gives us some context. It gives us a blueprint of anyone who might be interested in getting into politics themselves. But it gives us some context, right? Before we see what she's actually done as mayor. But just to really reiterate the fact that there's no Republican presence in the District of Columbia. It's really just a Democratic stronghold. But the Democrats right now are waning. And I think that they would be open. I think DC residents would be open to hearing a strong voice, not just from the Republican Party, but just any strong voice that has bright ideas, that would be willing to take on the establishment. Because at this point, Mayor Bowser's been in office for 10 years. She's running again next year in 2026. She's the establishment at this point. Mayor of the District of Columbia. Now let's get into what she's actually done since she's been mayor. In 2017, Bowser proposed several animal regulations, including a ban on backyard chickens. And I didn't like this. I remember when this happened. And I was thinking about getting some chickens. Now I'm thinking about getting some rabbits. I'm thinking about getting some rabbits because they're trying to ban chickens in the district. But in 2017, and I remember when this happened, Bowser proposed several animal regulations, including a ban on backyard chickens, which is a requirement that all cats be licensed, and a provision that seemed to outlaw leaving dog feces in private yards for more than 24 hours. Following public backlash, because we got a lot of pets in DC, you telling everyone what they can and can't do with their pets. Following public backlash, the city administrator clarified this is not a war on pets, and the proposals were withdrawn. You know, DC is getting gentrified. DC is getting gentrified. It's not made up like it used to be. There's a whole lot of folks that really care something fierce about their pets. Some of us care a lot more about our pets than others, and we're not going to take kindly to y'all telling us where we can and can't have our pets and what type of pets we got to get licenses for. No, not everyone's taking kindly to that. Later that same year, the Department of Health began to enforce an existing law banning dogs from outdoor patios. And people like to, in DC, it's a big brunch spot. A lot of people like to go to DC to have, might want to go to Georgetown and sit on the river and have their brunch and their mimosas and have their little dog. And now you're telling these rich folk down there in Georgetown that they can't have their dog outside of Starbucks. No, they're not taking kindly to that. Following public objections, the DC Council changed the law to allow business owners to decide whether or not to allow dogs, as it should be. Leave that between the people. The business owners and the people can decide where they can and can't have their dogs. We don't need the government telling us about where we can keep our dogs. All right? Now this is where things start to get interesting. We'll actually review some of the policies Mayor Bowser is trying to put into the district. Arts and culture. Asserting legal authority that was questioned by the DC Council, in 2019, Bowser illegally took control of the art collection owned by the DC Commission of the Arts and Humanities and sought to bring the organization under her control. Bowser's power struggle saw staff of the commission locked out of their jobs without warning. What? Bowser used her third ever veto to block legislation that would have preserved the independence of the organization, which also provides grants to hundreds of artists. And if you don't know, there's a big artist scene in DC. Like if you're an independent artist, if you're into paint, any type of medium, whether it be hip hop, go-go, which is a DC local genre of music, go-go music, whether it be painting, whatever your medium is, there is a very big independent artist scene in Washington, D.C. So there's a lot of backlash from the grassroots elements, from the artist elements here in D.C. against what Muriel Bowser was doing regarding taking control of the art collections here in D.C. So right now, not off to a good start. Autonomous vehicles. In February of 2018, Bowser announced the formation of a working group with members drawn from various agencies to explore the benefits and prepare the district for autonomous vehicle technology. The city and the Southwest Business Improvement Districts are also exploring possibilities for the pilot shuttle program along 10th Street. I think this has actually started to get some momentum. This shuttle program on 10th Street, I think it's already started to take root. Possibly, and this is in Southwest, along 10th Street Southwest, possibly to the supplement an existing service that connects visitors to popular district destinations. A request for information was released to firms with expertise in autonomous vehicle development. Again, her work with the shuttles, DC Metro, I think she's doing a pretty good job regarding the DC Metro and public shuttles, public transportation. She's done a pretty good job. She was previously on the board for the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, so she already has a lot of experience working with DC Metro systems. She's done a pretty good job there. And as a DC local, the infrastructure built up for, like, for example, charging Teslas, it's actually pretty good. It's actually pretty good. And I've been all around the country. I've been down to Georgia, Atlanta, Los Angeles, New York. I've been all around the country. And I will say DC's infrastructure regarding electric vehicles, not bad. Not bad. All right, let's get into budgeting. And then after budgeting, we're going to play a clip because I know I've been reading for some time. Y'all might want to rest. So I'm going to read this budgeting part, then I'll play a clip. We'll get back into it. Budgeting. Bowser released the first budget of her second term in March of 2019. And hold on, y'all know I like to read all my comments. I'm just now seeing this. Shout out to Michael Pan. We got Michael Pan back in the room. What's going on, brother? What's going on, Mike? Michael Pan says Bowser received more complaints from Black American residents. Oh yeah. That's what we're talking about tonight. She's done some good things with the Metro, but I've got quite a few complaints for Muriel Bowser. I'm not her biggest fan. I'm going to be honest with you. We're going to get into that in a little bit. So I appreciate you rocking with me, Mike. You know I'll read all my comments, so I appreciate you rocking with me, Mike. Let's get into this budgeting. So Bowser released the first budget of her second term in March of 2019. The budget increased spending by 8%, 8.2% specifically, though revenue growth was expected to be around 3%. A DC auditor, Kathy Patterson, said the budget was not sustainable and fiscally irresponsible. Bowser responded by hailing her plan to make the DC Circulator free of charge. DC Circulator is a downtown, basically, shuttle. It's basically a shuttle that goes downtown. It's not the metro, it's not the train, but it's like a bus. It's like a bus on rails. It's like a rail bus that's located in downtown DC. She's trying to make that free, but she's putting the district into a budget deficit by doing so. On multiple occasions, DC government agencies under Bowser's authority and led by her appointees lost millions in federal money because deadlines were missed. So organization, she's missing deadlines, losing millions of dollars because she's missing deadlines. Over the course of Bowser's first administration, the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, offered the DC Department of Housing and Community Development millions of dollars for lead remediation of its aging housing supply. The DC Housing DHCD target of remediating lead paint in 225 homes was not met. Federal grant money was not spent, and eventually the program closed. Not a great start. In 2019, local organizations provided assistance to at-risk populations, missed out in $3.7 million when the responsible DC government body failed to submit a timely application. Eleanor Holmes Norton and other DC officials begged and pleaded with federal authority to grant DC leniency so that local programs, including Reading Partners DC, the Literacy Lab, and City Year DC, could receive funding. So she's missing deadlines. She's costing the city money. Her budget is in a deficit. It's not a great start. And you know, DC already is getting a lot of its money from the federal government. Y'all check this out. I want to play this clip to give y'all some context. Check this out.
Wilson Building. And John, you're digging into how much money DC is getting from the federal government every year.
That's right. And as of this morning, Adam, the Mayor Muriel Bowser, says she hasn't been able to directly speak to Speaker of the House Mike Johnson on whether he will bring this critical bill up for a vote in the coming weeks. In the meantime, D.C. lawmakers still aren't sure if they're going to have to cut more than $1 billion from the city's local budget this fiscal year. Now, the Senate voted against the budget cuts on Friday, but a vote by the House is still at least a week away. So how much money does the district get from the federal government? Well, 7 News is looking into this, and according to the latest U.S. Census Bureau numbers, it was roughly $7.5 billion in fiscal year 2022, money that has helped pay for infrastructure, education, and health care for low-income families in the city. Now, that same year, 37.2% of the local government's revenue came from federal transfers. The mayor reiterated Monday during a press conference these cuts would come from local funds and would not result in $1 of federal savings.
When we think about increased costs from year to year, we're experiencing increased labor costs, inflation, cost of materials, and greater demand for our services.
Now, during this press conference yesterday, the mayor declined repeated questions about specifics on what specific jobs or services in the city would be cut if the House of Representatives on Capitol Hill vote against this D.C. bill. Reporting live, John Gonzalez, 7 News.
Yeah.
And that clip just came from this year. Mind you, with Elon Musk and his Doge program, his Department of Government Efficiency, because DC is not a state and it relies heavily on federal funding in order to make its budgets feasible, we can see that DC is very vulnerable to the Trump administration. All right, and Muriel Bowser in particular has a lot of questions to be answered if she wants to continue operating as normal. All right, now let's get back into this article. I know I've been doing some reading. I do have some more clips for y'all, but as I'm reading, I want to take a break every once in a while, play you guys a clip, something that is relevant to the article. But with that being said, let's get back into this article. I wanted to play that just to give you some context regarding the DC budget. All right. let's get into some campaign finance information. In 2015, Bowser's allies formed Fresh PAC, which is a political action committee intended to advance her agenda. The initiative was the first PAC in district politics so closely aligned with the sitting mayor and created by a former campaign treasurer. The reason I'm bringing this up again, there's a lot of allegations to Mayor Bowser being corrupted. So this is, notice as we're going through this article, you might notice a repeating theme. You might notice a recurring theme of corruption here. In 2015, they formed the PAC, and it's the first time that a PAC has been formed in the district, which is aligned with the sitting mayor. Thanks to a legislative loophole regulating off-year funding, Fresh PAC accepted unlimited contributions. Bowser supporters had quickly raised more than $300,000 and had a goal of collecting $1 million by the year's end. Fresh PAC was chaired by early Chico Horton III, a lobbyist for a major corporation that sought Bowser's support. Many of the highest donors participated in a trip to China with the mayor. Now, why does a DC mayor need to go to China? Following outcry from the Washington Post, members of the DC Council and other stakeholders of Fresh PAC was shut down in November of 2015. Now, this PAC is over here taking unlimited contributions, thanks to a loophole, taking trips to China. Tell me what the mayor of DC needs to do in China. They were shut down the same year that they started, which tells you what? You connect some dots on this one. Bowser said she thought that Fresh PAC was a good thing, but its message was distorted. Oh, the people just misunderstood. Because they love acting like, the people are just so stupid. We just can't understand anything. The message was distorted. It's not that it was corrupt. It's not that they were taking unlimited contributions thanks to a loophole. It's that the message was you just didn't understand. You just didn't understand. The message was corrupt. In 2017, the DC Office of Campaign Finance fined Bowser's campaign committee $13,000, accepting contributions beyond legal maximums during her 2014 mayoral campaign. The excess contributions totaled more than $11,000 from more than a dozen developers and contractors. So she's taking money illegally from developers and contractors, as well as from landlord Sanford Capital, whom the Bowser administration has been slow to fine, despite being responsible for more than 1,000 housing code violations. So these people are running some slumlords, but they won't even find the slumlords because the slumlords are paying off the mayor. So Mayor Bowser committed campaign finance illegal. They violated campaign finance laws. They were fined for it, but because she won, they've still been slow to fine Sanford and Capital, which is a slumlord, basically a slumlord operating in Washington, D.C. In 2018, the D.C. Council unanimously passed campaign finance legislation that sought to remove the influence of developers and other large donors from politics by publicly financing campaigns. Bowser was staunchly opposed to the act and said that she would not provide financing for implementation of the law. So they tried to pass legislation to prevent corruption in the future, and she said she was staunchly opposed to it. In 2018, the DC Council unanimously passed campaign finance legislation to try to remove the influence of developers and other large donors from politics by publicly financing campaigns, and Bowser was staunchly opposed to it. Why? Riddle me this. Why would you be staunchly opposed to some legislation which has been unanimously approved by the city council? Why are you so against it? Is it because it would affect you? It would prevent you from taking all of these donations from these contractors? I wonder. Contracting. In 2016, the head of DC's Department of General Services resigned, and contracting officials were fired following the award of a large construction project. One of the fired employees filed a $10 million whistleblower lawsuit alleging that he had been terminated for the failure to channel contracts to Fort Myer Construction, which was a major Bowser campaign donor. The other made similar allegations in an administrative proceeding. The episode prompted an investigation by City Council member Mary Che. In 2017, Che's report found that in addition to the questionable firings, a city employee had illegally shared confidential information with Fort Myer about a competitor's bid on a separate project. The report found that the DC City Council city administrator, the top Bowser appointed official, had urged quick settlement of unresolved contract disputes with Fort Myer in an attempt to appease it. These actions led to a $4 million payout to the firm, an outcome that the district had previously opposed. After fighting unsuccessfully to keep the findings from public view, Bowser refused to comment on any of the points in the report. Running from accountability. Running from accountability. The city council's passing legislation to prevent corruption in the district. The mayor staunchly against it. The city council is tasked with doing an audit. The episode prompted an investigation by council member Mary Che. She's tasked with doing an audit, and again, Bowser's against it. Let me know if you start to see a repeating theme here tonight. You're going to see a lot of corruption, and this is just reading her background at a high level. You're going to see a lot of repeating corruption here. All right, we're going to go into the COVID-19 response. And again, I know I've been reading a lot. So after we read this section, I'm going to take a quick break and I'll play a clip for you guys, which is relevant. And you'll be able to see when Mario Bowser was actually interacting with people in the middle of 2020, in the middle of the COVID pandemic. So we're going to play that clip in a bit. But first, let's get through this next couple paragraphs, and then we're going to take a break and watch a clip. So Black residents in DC were killed by COVID-19 at 5.9, let's round up and say 6 times the rate of white people. The worst disparity in any major city. An investigation attributed the unequal toll to multiple strategic missteps by Bowser's administration. Now, as we're reading this, just for clarity, from my perspective at least, I tend to give people who were in leadership positions during COVID, I tend to give them a benefit of the doubt. Because I know COVID was not Mario Bowser's fault. She didn't plan on there being a global pandemic, but she was just leading at an unfortunate and difficult time. Her response might not have been the best, but I give leaders the benefit of the doubt when they're going through hard times. It's when things are generally peaceful that I give you the most pushback. So COVID-19 response, as we're reading, you can have your own personal opinions, but I'll tend to give her a benefit of the doubt. But let's keep reading. Among the shortcomings, a testing site was not established anywhere east of the Anacostia River, and Bowser's health team was slow to solicit bids. In a rush to reopen the district in June of 2020, her administration removed data from the government's website to avoid displaying how it had failed to meet a key metric. At this time in 2020, I was in China, so I wasn't even here at this point, but I came back in 2021, so I was there. I was there at that point. We'll see. So she was failed to put up testing sites basically in the hood east of Anacostia. Now, Anacostia, anyone who's not from the DMV, you might not know, but Anacostia, that's the hood. All right, you find yourself in Anacostia, it might be time to get yourself an Uber. It might be time to get yourself someplace safe. You don't want to be walking around Anacostia at night. I'm just saying. In November of 2020, Bowser traveled to Delaware with senior staff for a celebration of Joe Biden's victory, despite the elevated risk of coronavirus in the state and a travel advisory discouraging visits. Bowser claimed the trip to the festivities were essential, while critics pointed out that she violated her own protocols. Now, that's one thing I will say. I give leaders the benefit of the doubt based on their COVID responses, because I don't think it was Mayor Bowser or Trump's fault or anyone's fault. I don't blame any American for COVID. But I do hold them responsible for their hypocrisy. That's one thing. I don't blame you if you did a shutdown and your shutdown, didn't work out as planned. Okay, you were trying to solve a problem. I'll give you benefit of the doubt there. But when you are out here telling people that they need to quarantine, they can't go to church, when you're telling people that they can't visit their families in the hospital, they can't visit their mothers and their grandparents in the nursing rooms, but then you're out going to party with Joe Biden, that's just blatant hypocrisy. And that's one thing I don't give you a pass for that. I don't give you a pass for that. You are being hypocritical. You're holding the public to a standard that you yourself as the leader, you're not even trying to meet. No, I don't give you a pass for that. As the pandemic subsided and vaccines became more readily available, Bowser's instructions on masking created confusion among business owners and the public. In April of 2021, Bowser issued a mayoral order that patrons could enter dining establishments unmasked if they provided proof of vaccination upon request. After confused businesses owners asked for clarification, the mayor order was removed. So she's just throwing darts at the wall. She doesn't know what's going to stick. Again, this is 2020. Those masking mandates were crazy. One minute, oh, we've got to have the mask. They're going to save us all. The next minute, oh, the masks, they don't really matter. And it was all hyperbole. And you know who was the worst? Who couldn't give us one consistent policy regarding the mask was Fauci. Fauci, the guy who Joe Biden gave blanket immunity to right before he left office. Anthony Fauci, that's... So Mayor Bowser and Anthony Fauci were given those mixed messages regarding the mask. Oh yeah, we're going to get into that in a second. In response to the rising number of COVID-19 cases caused by the Delta variant, in July of 2021, I was back in DC at this point, Bowser announced a new indoor mask mandate. On the day that it reinstated the mandate took effect, Bowser was found to have officiated an indoor wedding while unmasked. So the very same day, when you're telling people they can't go out to restaurants, outdoor restaurants, they can't go out to church in an outdoor setting without a mask on, you are indoor at a wedding with no mask. So it's the hypocrisy that I'm taking issue with here. Bowser went under scrutiny for her actions during the COVID-19 pandemic for attending protests to defend the police while restricting people of faith from meeting in religious gathering as a congregation, even outside. So you're telling people that they can't go to church outside. Meanwhile, you're walking down BLM Boulevard with no mask. All right, it's the hypocrisy for me. And y'all might remember this clip, which was really telling in 2020 and 2021 when Mayor Muriel Bowser and her best friend Anthony Fauci were going out talking to DC residents, trying to get their perspective on the situation. Because one thing about DC residents, we want to tell you what we think. we got some truth tellers here in DC. Check out what the DC residents had to tell Mayor Bowser and her friend Anthony Fauci when they asked what our thoughts were. Check this out.
People in America are not settled with the information that's been given to us right now. So I'm not going to be lining up taking a shot or a vaccination for something that wasn't clear in the first place. And then you all create a shot in miraculous time. It takes years to create vaccination.
Well, it used to take years.
Okay, it used to.
You know how many years were invested in this approach? About 20 years of science.
You see how he just lied there? See how he worded that? Do you know how many years were invested in this approach? When he says this approach, he's not saying in this vaccine, because he didn't know that this vaccine would be necessary until late 2019, early 2020. This vaccine, you developed this vaccine within 9 months. Now, you might have been working on the mRNA technology for some years, but this vaccine you developed in 9 months via Operation Warp Speed, where you told the public that other options like ivermectin were inconsequential. You told the public that there was no other option. We have to move at warp speed. This is an emergency situation and no other medicine can do. Ivermectin is not a solution in the eyes of the federal government to this very day. To this very day in 2025. Because mind you, they're still putting out the COVID vaccine via Johnson & Johnson, right? They're under Operation Warp Speed. They need that to be classified as an emergency medication. So I just wanted to point out the wordplay there.
To get us to be able to do it.
20 years is not enough. And 9 months is definitely not enough for nobody to be taking no vaccination that you all came up with.
The only reason I'm talking to you right now, as close as we are, is that I've been vaccinated.
Right.
But if it allows thousands of people like you don't get vaccinated, you're going to let this virus continue to percolate in this country and in this world.
And you see, she's trying to move with the shaming tactics. Oh, if people like you don't get the vaccine, the virus is going to continue to percolate. Now we know the vaccine doesn't stop the virus from percolating at all. The vaccine doesn't stop transmission and it doesn't stop you from contracting it. The vaccine just manages your symptoms so that your symptoms won't be life-threatening. But the vaccine is not keeping you from spreading isn't keeping you from spreading the virus. And the vaccine isn't stopping you from getting the virus. All right? So that whole shaming tactic, which was big at that time, and I think because it's 2025 and time goes on, I think we've forgiven, and a lot of us have forgotten the arrows that a lot of us had to take. People like myself who were like, I'm not taking this experimental vaccine. You want us to be your guinea pig? I'm not taking that. And a lot of us had to fight battles for that. We had to endure these shaming tactics from our mayor, from our governors, from our president. Really, from our presidential candidates, telling us that we're the problem. We took a lot of arrows in 2020 and 2021. Brothers like this one right here, who's telling her to her face, this is an experimental drug. I'm not taking that.
Like the common flu then, right?
And
It's much more serious than the flu.
Well, the flu kills a lot of people annually too.
You know how many people died of the flu the last year? I mean, not this year, virtually none, but
Hey, that's another Freudian slip too. You know how many people died of the flu this year? Virtually none. Why is that? Anyone ever stop and ask themselves, why is it that in 2020 and 2021, virtually nobody died of the flu? Everyone died of COVID, but no one died of the flu, huh? Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay.
The previous year, about 20 to 30,000. You know how many people have died from COVID-19 in the United States? 600,000 Americans.
Well, the number that you all giving that died, that's once again, that's you all's number.
You gonna pass?
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
When
Yeah,
you start
definitely.
talking about paying people to get vaccinated, when you start talking about incentivizing things to get people vaccinated, it's something else going on with that. It's something else going on.
It is something going on.
There's something else.
You're right, but I'm glad millions of people like me and most everybody here didn't get an incentive. You know what their incentive was? Protecting their health and protecting the city. But I won't keep you anymore.
It's okay, because my incentive, y'all campaign is about fear. It's about inciting fear in people. You all attack people with fear. That's what this pandemic is. It's a fear. It's fear, this pandemic. That's all it is.
I like how he called them out on their way out. Hey, this is all about fear. Y'all trying to scare people. Y'all sitting here trying to scare people, and it worked. Oh, believe me, it worked. So that's that clip right there. I wanted to be sure to share that with you guys. Shout out and salute to that brother. Salute to that brother in DC who was willing to speak his mind and stand up and say, hey, no, I'm not taking that. No, I'm able to think. I'm able to use my own brain, my own intuition, and say there's something not right. There's something suspicious about this whole situation. I've never known this U.S. government to have my best interest at heart. I'm not putting some experimental drug in my veins just because you say so. Nah, I'll take my chances. I'll take my chances with the flu. I'll take my chances. I got enough of this sea moss. I got my green sea moss. I got my ivermectin. I got my vitamin D. I'll take my chances. I'll take my chances the natural way with orange juice and fruit. I'm gonna let the herb be for the healing of the nation. All right. So shout out to that brother. He's on the right track. Let's get back into this article because we still got a ways to go. All right, we still got a ways to go. So we're gonna get back into the article. If you've made it this far in the video, though, let me take a moment and salute you. If you made it this far in the video, be sure to hit the thumbs up button. If you're getting any value from watching tonight, be sure to hit the thumbs up button. And let's keep on going in this article. Bada bing, bada boom. All right, breaking into crime. Now, during her first year as mayor, the district saw a 40% increase in homicides. What? Bowser sought to address the spike by proposing legislation allowing law enforcement officials to perform warrantless searches of violent ex-offenders. So she was like, hey, here's an idea. Anyone who's committed a crime in the past, now you no longer have the right to be safe in your persons and effects. Now the cops can stop and frisk you. How about that? The bill was widely opposed by citizens groups in the DC Council, and it did not pass. Praise God for the DC City Council. In 2016, district homicides fell by 17% to 135. It dropped again in 2017 to 116, or about the same level prior to the 2015 spike. There were 160 homicides in 2018, an increase of 40% from the previous year, and the most since 2015. Murders continued to rise in 2019, and by September 19th, the homicide rate in the district reached 125, which is a 17% increase from the previous year. You might be wondering how, the previous year was 160 homicides, how is it dropping to 125 and that's a 17% increase? It's because this is 125 by September, whereas there was 160 homicides total in 2018. In 2021 marked the fourth straight year of increasing homicides, including a weekend in May in which 11 people were shot in the district. By July of 2021, I remember that weekend too. And this was right around the time when Juneteenth was becoming a holiday. This was right before the first Juneteenth. This was in 2021. In May, in which 11 people were shot in the district. By July of 2021, DC had recorded 100 homicides. The earliest point in the year it had reached this milestone since 2003. 2003, I believe I was in DC at that time too. I was like 12 years old at that time. And 217 killings were recorded by the end of the year, the highest in nearly 20 years, 22 decades. In 2021, carjackings in DC skyrocketed, reaching more than 4 times the level of the previous year, following an attack in which a Pakistani Uber Eats driver, Mohammed Anwar, was murdered as the result of a brazen carjacking. Bowser released a tweet explaining that carjackings were a crime of opportunity, giving the impression that Anwar was responsible for his own death. Bowser later deleted the tweet, claiming that it was scheduled to go out before the death, but did not apologize or immediately offer any condolences to Anwar's family or condemnation of his killers, who were black, sparking backlash and accusations of racial bias. I mean, I don't know why she would hesitate to denounce a killer. I mean, whether he's black or not, we're not supporting carjackings and killing people for their cars in DC. So yeah, I don't know about all that. In 2021, the district's forensic crime lab lost its accreditation following a probe that determined the lab concealed conflicting findings and pressured examiners to change results in a firearms case and other mistakes. So basically, they were corrupt too. There's conflicting findings. Hey, this lab result is unclear. So let's just say the guy's guilty. Hey, we're dealing with this firearms case. We're going to pressure the examiners to change the results. What? So they lost their accreditation. The investigation led to a criminal investigation of the lab's errors and the resignation of its head, Dr. Jennifer Smith. Days after the news about the lab was first reported, Bowser honored the woman who should have been left in disgrace, Dr. Jennifer Smith. Bowser honored her as part of the Washington Women of Excellence Awards. Now this is DEI stuff at its finest. And it's unfortunate because DEI, just like affirmative action, in theory is supposed to be supporting something good, which is leveling the playing field for foundational Black Americans. But it's been so bastardized and used for all of these other undeserving groups that when we see things like this, an investigation, a criminal investigation ongoing into a lab technician who is basically setting up people to go to prison. This lab lost its accreditation because they're doing half-arsed work. They're pressuring examiners. They're concealing conflicting findings. And Bowser's decision is to honor the woman who just lost her job for doing these things. Bad optics. That's almost as bad as what's the mayor Eric Adams from New York giving Diddy the keys to the city right before he gets arrested. It's like the only difference is Mayor Bowser awarded the woman days after she resigned. That's when Bowser. That's like Mayor Eric Adams finding out Diddy is getting arrested for on a RICO, right? And then after he gets arrested for the RICO, he gives him the keys to the city. That's wild. In 2023, the district experienced more homicides than in any other year since 1997. Back in the 90s, stuff was getting kind of greasy. Back in the 90s, DC was the murder capital. Let's not forget. DC was no joke. The uptick in homicide, I was there at the time. The uptick in homicides occurred while many other major cities saw a decrease in homicides in 2023. Bowser said that she believes the city's current approach to public safety allowed criminal offenders to avoid sufficient consequences. Take a quick break here, guys. We might have a clip for you guys to check out. By the way, be sure to hit the thumbs up button if you've made it this far. There's a lot of folks, before we get into the rest of this article, I just want to say there's a lot of folks on the grassroots who are not very pleased with, Mayor Bowser's performance. There's a lot of people speaking out against Mayor Bowser. I think what the city is looking for right now is any other option. The problem is it's such a Democratic stronghold. There is no significant Republican Party there. Even the Green Party is weak. So once you get in under the Democratic banner, you're basically running unopposed. But the folks on the grassroots, the people on the grassroots are starting to wake up and call out Mayor Bowser for her corruption and her many faux pas as DC mayor. Y'all check this out.
I don't talk about my discussions with families.
But and respectfully, I'm not asking you to divulge in any conversations, but do you plan to meet them at all?
No.
Can I ask why?
I've answered your question. Any other questions?
John Evans tells us he is disappointed in that answer. Now, he has heard from someone with the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement. Evans' 14-year-old son, Avion, was killed on April 4th, nearly 8 years after his older son was stabbed at the Deanwood Metro Station in 2016. The Evans family went through another loss last May when another son was shot on M Street.
I don't talk about my discussions with families.
Now, this man, John Edwards, lost 3 of his kids to gun violence. There was a big grassroots effort to give him some support, to call for a ceasefire amongst the gangs here in DC. Not that we have any, we don't have Crips and Bloods and all that. We got more like streets. But I might have to make a follow-up video breaking down the DC street life. I might have to. I don't know. Yeah, I might have to make a video breaking down DC politics, street politics. I might have to make a video on that. But we don't have like GDs. We don't have like Crips, Bloods, and all that. We got streets in DC. But I show that clip just to show that folks who are passionate about ending the gun violence in DC, they're not very happy. They're not very happy, or they were not very happy, especially these past few years since 2020. Now this year, actually, 2025, there have been some reports that this is so far a very good year as far as crime goes. The year's just starting, but it's supposed to be a record historically low homicide in 2025. So we're off to a good start on the bright side. All right, let's get back to this article. All right. So in February of 2015, Bowser canceled the creation of a public facility for art exhibitions, lectures, and educational activities by the Institute of Contemporary Expression, approved by, remember Vincent Gray, the previous mayor? The project involved a privately funded conversion of the historic but unused Franklin School. And I drive by the Franklin School all the time. The Franklin School, you can check out a picture right there. Nice. And had its first event planned for September 2015. Bowser cited financial concerns for the decision, but critics noted that several of the firms who earlier competed unsuccessfully for the property were among her donors. Again, I said you're going to see a repeating theme of corruption when it comes to development, construction in the district as it relates to Mayor Bowser. You're going to see a repeating theme here. She seems to be very biased amongst the construction companies that donate to her. I mean, as you should expect. As you should expect. As of October of 2015, proposals were still being considered. In September of 2015, Bowser announced a deal with Monumental Sports owner Ted Leonsis to build practice facilities for Washington Wizards. Under the deal, the district taxpayers would pay 90% of the $55 million cost. So we, the district taxpayers, are paying 99% of a new building to give it to a billionaire to make money from. And the rich get richer, don't they? The government's portion was split between direct government expenditures and Events DC, a DC government-funded body which operates with an independent board. In July of 2016, before construction had started, it was announced that costs would exceed estimates by $10 million. Oh yeah, the DC taxpayers, y'all gonna pay 90% of a $55 million? No problem? You're good to go? Cool, let's add another $10 million on top of that. Let's go ahead and add another $10 million while we're at it. While the number of seats in the facility would likely decrease. So mind you, we're going to charge you DC tax residents money to bring the facility in. Once we build the facility that you pay for, we're going to charge you to go to watch the games. Then once you finally give all that money to the billionaire, we're going to have less seats. What happens with supply and demand? Less supply, meaning less seats. Price going up. Wow. Under the agreement with the developer, the district will be responsible for cost overruns, which means originally it was $55 million. You agreed to it, and you agreed that anything over the $55 million, instead of being 90% responsible for, you're 100% responsible for the overruns, which means that extra $10 million, which we underestimated, yeah, the DC taxpayer can pay that in full. Once the Care First Arena was completed, operations costs exceeded estimates, and the Events DC board approved more than another $1 million in additional costs to cover the shortfall. So altogether, what are we at? 65, 66 million that the DC tax residents have to pay? Cool. A contract for a firm to find naming rights for the facility was funded at $180,000 per year. Oh, we can't come up with a name. We got to find a name. Let's pay these people $180,000 a year to come up with a name. I can see why her budget isn't really looking like. I can see why her budget is leaving us at a deficit. I can see why. In May of 2019, the DC auditor found that the Housing Production Trust Fund, which gives developers funding for affordable housing, had awarded funding to proposals that scored poorly and in one case received the lowest score. The successful but low-rated projects were all proposed by developers who had made contributions to the mayor's campaign. More contributions. Hey, name of the game is better contribute. Pay to play. Pay for access. Pay to play. All right, now this is interesting. Education. In 2015, the DC Public Schools Chancellor, Kaya Henderson, routinely bent or broke school placement rules to give preferential treatment to well-connected parents seeking prized enrollments at particular DC public schools. 2 senior Bowser appointees were among 7 parents who benefited from Henderson's misuse of authority by being permitted to bypass the competitive DCPS lottery system. Let me break down this lottery system. The lottery system is basically if you don't live in the area where that school is, but you want to go to that school, you can get in only via a lottery system. So they're only going to take so many names taken at random, selected at random for the excess of kids who don't live in that immediate area, who don't otherwise qualify. Deputy Mayor Courtney Snowden, who makes $196,000 a year, jumped a wait list of more than 1,000 names to enroll her child. So she jumped to the front of the line. In 2018, it was revealed that Bowser's recently appointed school chancellor, Antoine Wilson, had similarly manipulated the system to transfer Wilson's teenage daughter to a preferred school. Wilson and other staff resigned while Bowser refused a request to testify about Wilson's statements that she was aware of the placement, calling an inquiry political circus. Yeah, I'm not going to answer your questions. This is just a circus. Everyone uses their power and influence to get their kids an upper hand. It's called nepotism. What, you want me to go sit down and answer for my nepotism, which is common amongst everyone else? I feel you, Mayor Bowser. I feel you. By 2018, management of DC public schools prompted an investigation by the FBI, the U.S. Department of Education, and the DC Office of the Inspector General. Dun, dun, dun. All right, emergency services. This is really kind of interesting and sad here. The emergency services here in DC. In February 2016, Bowser's appointee as medical director of the fire department resigned from her post after 1 year on the job. Explaining her decisions, Juliette Saucy said that she could not be complicit in a failed agency and that its performance was putting Washingtonians' lives at risk. In response, Bowser's spokesperson said she was committed to achieving change. So the medical director out for the fire department was like, oh no, I'm not working here. I don't want my name associated with this. This place is a mess. People are dying because of y'all, because of how unorganized you guys are. In February of 2022, Bowser reappointed Karima Holmes to lead the Office of the Unified Communications, a position she previously held for 6 years. During her earlier period as director, the city's 911 system fell short of national standards and resulted in fatal consequences when its responders were sent to the wrong address. They're going around sending these people to the wrong address. Shameful. Shameful. All right, guys. This is still interesting. We're not quite done with this article, but we've got quite a ways to go, and it's getting kind of late. I got to handle some family obligations. So I think we're going to call it pause here. I might come back tomorrow night with a part 2 on this topic. I might have to come back tomorrow with a part 2. But I've got this one more clip that I want to play before we get out of here. I want this this sister. She's a writer out here stepping for the Palestinians. I think she's a Muslim woman out here involved in DC politics. I want to give her the last word before we close out for the night. Y'all check this out.
We are setting up a new encampment outside of the admin building between admin and Granberg's house. And, you know, Muriel Bowser lied, because that's what Muriel Bowser does. Just like in 2020 when she said that it was illegal to use tear gas, but yet for 200 plus days we were tear gassed, we were beaten, we were assaulted by MPD. This is Muriel Bowser's legacy. Any single time there is a real movement, a popular movement for racial justice in DC, Muriel Bowser crushes it. That's just what she does. She works alongside Republicans. She was intimidated by her hearing, so intimidated by her hearing that she decided to let MPD violently brutalize student protesters, peaceful student protesters, after she said that she would not do that. I think that Muriel Bowser was shook because Congress is about to have her in front of the entire nation, and she doesn't want to look like the way the Colombian president looks. She doesn't want to look like the way the president of Harvard looked. She wants to keep her career chances up. She wants to make sure that she can be reelected. She wants to make sure that she does not get blamed for the bad optics, because that's all this is about for her. The only reason why she didn't sweep the encampment 2 weeks ago is because it was about optics. The reason why she swept the encampment before the hearing is because she wanted good optics. It's all about her career. It is not about the First Amendment rights of these students. And if she says that DC stands for First Amendment rights, it was never acceptable to send MPD in the way that she did.
Is there anything you'd like to add?
Fuck Muriel Bowser, fuck MPD, and free Palestine.
Will we be moved
as we fulfill our role in the struggle?
Boom. Boom. Shout out and salute to that lady for speaking her heart. Shout out, because they say from the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Shout out to that sister for calling a spade a spade. As she said, and I agree with her, I think that DC Mayor Bowser is more involved in the optics. You know, I think that she shrouds herself as if she is you know, she's speaking for the people, she's a rider with the people, she's a grassroots activist. But I think she's much like AOC, whereas she might have started with that grassroots mentality, I think somewhere along the way she seems to have been corrupted, and I think it shows in a lot of her policies. There's some more of this article that I did want to get to read. I did want to go into, for example, her stance on government transparency. I wanted to go into gun control and healthcare. Homelessness. I wanted to touch on homelessness, housing. There were some more parts of this that I wanted to get into, but it is getting kind of late tonight, guys. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to have to make a follow-up video, maybe a part 2 for tonight or for tomorrow. I might have to do part 2. We'll finish up breaking down Muriel Bowser and in some of these more important aspects of her policies. Yeah. So join me tomorrow night, same time, likely a little bit earlier, maybe around 9 tomorrow night, for part 2 of Mayor Bowser's breakdown. I appreciate everyone who's rocking with me tonight. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button on your way out, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.
For these bands up in hand, I made like 5 bands a day. I was broke, came up with a plan, now I'm the man, there ain't no stopping me. I ran up all these bands up in hand, I made like 5 bands a day. I was broke, came up with a plan, now I'm the man, there ain't no stopping me. It ain't no stopping me. Got bands, I'ma run it up, it ain't no stopping me.